Our question is the idea of intuitiveness more capable of handling metaphysics other than scientific methods? To answer this, intuition is more capable because it brings forth the essence of being. Since intuition does not solely rely on understanding logic or scientific observation, but with a mental capacity which is absent from scientific observation.
Intuitiveness allows a person to expand the aspects of a true metaphysician, and not just through the idea of empirical observation or scientific observation, but in the mental capacity of thought. Thus, it receives a depth of meaning from the being and intuition.
But the supporting claim implies that intuition is necessary, because being is not just a physical quality, so it cannot necessarily be discovered by empirical study, so it must be sought intellectually. Which means not just towards the physical quality but a depth in quality as well towards a being. Intuitiveness may not be as absolute as scientific method, but we can use this to measure things that cannot be measured by scientific method.
Intuitiveness may cause ignorance towards empirical study due to its absence of basic tangible aspects such as color, shape, structure, and measurable variables. Intuitiveness could not lead to any factual groundings as any results could vary. Intuitiveness may be vague or misleading because human emotions are subjective and every individual has different emotional approach.
Supporting claim is discussed that not only that it's necessarily for us to understand the intuitiveness of one's person, but how we are able to understand the things that we are unable to measure, which is important towards metaphysics as well, on how we're able to understand things that cannot be scientifically be measured by rulers, by weighing measurers, etc. But it's also in the idea that we're able to weigh the things that are important to our lives as well, including the emotional aspects of the human person. Good na?
Go.
1, 2.
An illustration is an example is when you're comforting a friend, when you don't just check on what's physically tangible towards them, such as their quantities and other measurable aspects, but also checking their mental aspect as well. Although it may not be accurate by measure, but it's in the idea that you also weigh in its value, knowing that it's also tangible as well. Another example is how you're able to know the feelings of your classmates, for example, where you can't necessarily measure how their feelings are currently, but you know that they're feeling underwhelmed, for example, knowing that you can't measure them correctly, for example. That's also the idea of metaphysics. But I think the third illustration as well, it's towards familial factors as well, such as your families and close friends, for example, then, that you cannot necessarily measure how they are, you cannot necessarily measure how they feel, but you're able to understand how much the depth of value that inherently get from them in terms of how you're able to intuitively know the values of their feelings, for example. Okay. Inside of this important philosophical essay about metaphysics, it's just not understanding the importance of empirical science just because we can measure things and how we are able to be weighed, but also in the importance on how we are able to measure the things such as emotions, not just by quantities and numbers, but also knowing how we are able to value the emotions or the mental things that we are unable to quantify, for example, but also being able to give value towards these types of things in the end of the day.